This is the Jay Pitt Show.
So I've been seeing pop up on Facebook primarily lately, but people talking about a housing shortage again. And this is kind of leading into another real estate topic I want to talk about. But first, I want you to explain, why do we have a housing shortage and when did it start?
All right, great question. It's a long time in the making. So you have the baby boomer generation of, I don't know the numbers, 60, 65 million, is a large generation. It's a very economically robust generation. You have a small Gen X generation in between the baby boomers and the baby boomers' children, which are the millennial generation, which is another 65 or 70 million people, and another extremely robust economic generation of people. So just the fact that that generation is so large is kind of the start of it, because the size of the generation speaks to family formations and family units, which speaks to the amount of housing necessary. The event that triggered the housing shortage more than anything was probably the Clinton administration's deregulation that allowed for the mortgage crisis, right? Because it made the deregulation of the mortgage industry made cheap money readily available, which pushed demand, and supply tried to meet that demand. Then the abrupt end to that with the mortgage crisis, right? Because the banks kind of pulled the rug out from under everyone interested in refinancing, all that stuff. What that did was basically hurt the small builder. It hurt large builders too, but it drove many small builders out of business and essentially put a stop to the creation of new inventory for quite some time. Okay, so it is a serious confluence of a lot of events, though, because the builders stopped, the economy was stagnant, we had a recession, the Great Recession. You had a lot of people displaced and frustrated with home ownership because of the foreclosure they'd endured. You had a lot of properties that were devalued substantially and bought up by investors. You had properties that were dilapidated and uninhabitable that removes them from the housing stock. You have entire areas that become undesirable for residential real estate because the percentage of the homes there that had been foreclosed. I mean, it's a lot of tough stuff that happened from 2007 to 2012 or 13, right? That 5 to 6 year period was really, really tough. And the die was cast for a shortage of inventory at that point, because even as the market started recovering in 11, 12, 13, builders couldn't build. So you had a lot of people flipping houses. They didn't do a great job. You had more frustration with the housing industry. You had what people told us was a generation in the millennials that were prone to buy later or not buy at all. Turns out they very much value, I'm the oldest millennial, and I very much have always, but I've been from a real estate background, you too, so we're not the best data set, but it's turned out that the millennials very much value traditional things just in different ways, and we probably value home ownership more than Gen X did. But yeah, we were a little slow to adopt as a generation. So anyway, my point is all that stuff led to just incremental reasons why housing stock is withheld from the market. And when you look at the numbers, I want to say that it's about 2 million housing units per year exit their useful life. So they're too old, they're dilapidated, they're whatever, they're in undesirable areas. And then you have about 2 million family formations per year. So if you think about that, that's really like a 4 million home delta
Yeah.
just to keep pace with current status quo. That's not, so you have to build, if you build 5 million homes a year, you're cutting into the housing shortage at a rate of 1 million homes per year. But if you build less than 4, then you're growing the shortage, which I mean, we can look it up right now, but we can probably, look up and determine what that actual shortage is. But it hasn't,
Yeah. I guess you got to count. I mean, I don't know how you'd find these numbers, and it's a little morbid, but people that own homes that die a year.
yeah, I mean, then there's something there. I mean, so yeah, I'm not saying that building homes is the only way. I guess I could have been clearer a minute ago. Building homes is the only way to decrease the housing shortage. Yes, a certain number of people die, and that frees up homes. Are they the most desirable homes for the predominant buyer? Not always. You could renovate homes that were dilapidated and uninhabitable and bring them back to the housing stock, but it's probably not a statistically meaningful number
Yeah.
on either of those. I mean, deaths would be more meaningful. There could be people that exit home ownership, a divorce where the couple splits up, sells a house to another family unit, and then both rents an apartment.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing. But yeah, again, the most meaningful way to decrease the housing shortage is to build new homes.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to get solved that way. And unfortunately, I think the only solution is a very, very long-term solution that is kind of just like the way society's going right now. And what I mean by that is people are having less kids these days.
Yeah.
And you're going to have, and I looked into this a ton, and I just know people are having a lot less kids these days. And I think the long-term solution, whether it's 100 years from now, is people having less kids, population isn't growing anymore. And that's, in my opinion, the next time we're going to see there not be a housing shortage. We'll probably
crazy?
be dead by then, but
Yeah. I want to look this up. And I've got numbers pulled up on housing starts by year. But I want to look this up. I'm interested to know because my perception of people having children now, right? The age, the generation, the younger millennial, the older Gen Z that are in family formation years right now. It appears to me that the ones that have children on average have more children than in recent decades. I see a lot more families of 4 and 5 kids, of 3 kids. We have 3. I have a ton of friends that have 3 and 4 children. There also seems to be, and I think outweighed by that, is there's the amount of people that have no kids.
yeah.
So it's kind of interesting, from a sociology standpoint, what drives those thoughts? I don't know. Let's talk about housing starts though, because from 2008 to 2012, okay, so let's set the stage. In 2001, there were 1.6 million housing starts. 2005, it went up in 2003, went up in 2005. I guess they only do this every 2 years. Well, this is weird. For the 2000s, I have every 2 years, but then some of them it's every year. But I don't know. 2005, it peaked in over 2 million housing starts. Went down in 2006 to 1.8, and 2007 to 1.3, 0.91 in 2008, 0.55. So 550,000 housing starts in 2009. Okay, that is the historic low. 0.59, so 590,000 housing starts in 2010, back up to 780,000 in 2012. And then by 2015, we were over 1 million again. And starting in 2020, 1.38, 1.6, 1.55, 1.42, 1.36, 1.35. So like if we need 4 million new homes a year, we're increasing
Yeah.
the housing shortage by 2 to 3 million homes per year for the last 5 years at least.
Crazy.
So like, yeah, it's a wonder why prices are going up.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty crazy. I don't really know what to say to that, but I'll say, I guess, what we've always said, which is, I guess the government needs to find a way to stimulate housing starts.
They do. And I don't know. They said they were going to do something, but haven't seen anything happen. So
I mean, the government
like I said, I
can't
think the
agree that the
long-term
sky is
solution
blue.
is people dying and people having less kids.
Yeah.
Which I was going to say is interesting about that, though. Maybe it's just because of where we live and where we are, but nearly all my friends have 1 to 2 kids now and are married and own
But
a
they're still
home.
young. I mean, they're
Yeah.
still young and potentially could have more children.
Right. But it's just very interesting to me because, talk about, population decrease and people not having kids anymore. And I personally don't see that in my friend group, which obviously very small sample size. I feel like I can maybe see it in people I know 5, 6 years younger than me, aren't married, aren't having kids. That's still pretty young though. You're 25, 20, 24. I wonder how different it would be like living somewhere like New York City or San Francisco.
Yeah.
And I would say being 30, having 2 kids, married, and owning your house is a very, very, very small part of the population in those places.
I mean, you hear you hear population collapse as a chief concern. I mean, you remember the narrative when we were young was overpopulation,
Yeah.
and it is very much not.
I feel like that's all like you would hear about that all the time in school, whether it was here or like China. I feel like they always talked about China needs their population to decrease,
Which is not the case. I mean,
Yeah.
they went to a one-child policy, and the population has collapsed behind it. But interesting enough, so I want to correct myself. I have done a search from 1960 to 1990. Family formations on average per year is 1.5 million. Okay. Interestingly enough, during the financial crisis from 2008 to 2012, family formations dipped to right around more of an average of 500,000 per year. So family formations were directly impacted. Went from 1.2 million in 2007 to 0.4 million, 400,000 families formed in 2010. So, and I'm pretty sure what that is defined by is basically just people getting married.
Yeah.
So like, because, but that is crazy how that's serious. So, I mean, if you look at what we're talking about, you need more homes created to be able to cut into the shortage, and it's just not happening.